Hi folks, and welcome to the Truck King YouTube channel. This is my dad's 2019 Ram 2500 towing his Grand Design Solitude fifth wheel. Now, we did a full video on this setup because we got one of these. This is the Curt Crosswing. It's a fifth wheel style hitch that actually attaches to the gooseneck ball in the back of your truck. Now, if you want to hear our thoughts on it, please go watch the full review. It's here on the channel. Now, once we published that video, we got a ton of comments and two themes quickly emerged. First of all, a lot of people called into question the strength and design of the Crosswing, and second of all, a lot of folks were asking about the numbers on the trailer and on the truck. So in this video, we're gonna do our best to answer those questions. We actually got to talk with an engineer from Curt all about how the Crosswing is designed and why it is the way it is. And then we also took that Ram and that fifth wheel and rolled over a scale so we can share the weights with you, and you might be surprised at what they are, so make sure you stay tuned.
Anyway, first off, so far I've been very happy with the Crosswing. I think it's a great product. However, we got a ton of feedback. I know Christy's been following along. I guess the first one right off the hop is the Anderson hitch. Probably because if I'm correct, I think it was the first one of that type that came out.
I think that's correct. They were one of the first to kind of enter into the, really lightweight market, and based on, a lot of people find that a positive, right? Especially elderly people. A lot of people that RV are retired and they just don't want to deal with a really heavy, hard to maneuver fifth wheel hitch, right? So they definitely got that part of it right. And so as a result, obviously, there's a lot of competitors in that space now, and we've entered that market as well.
Well, the big thing with the Anderson is that it's aluminum. Mm-hmm. Now, some people saw that as a positive. I remember talking to people too who their sense of it was I don't trust it. I don't trust anything that's that lightweight. So maybe speak to the fact that when you guys decided to come out with the Crosswing, obviously you didn't go aluminum. What was the thinking behind the construction of it?
So, we've been in the fifth wheel game for quite a long time, and for most people that are, designing hitches and trailers, most companies anymore have kind of adopted the SAE J2638 requirement. So it's a proposed standard yet. It's not fully adopted, like it's not a requirement, but it is a very rigorous fatigue test as well as static testing that's required for whatever weight rating. So we build all of our hitches to that requirement, including the Crosswing. So we just found, to meet that requirement, part of it is deflection, the amount that it can deflect at the different load capacities going to 20,000 pounds. We there one with aluminum, and then there's some, I guess, disadvantages to the way that Anderson chose to attach to a fifth wheel pin box. So number one, I guess, biggest thing that we did that we believe is different than them was actually be J2638 compliant. I've not seen that advertised anywhere on their site that they meet that requirement. I just see that is a big one for us, that we make sure that we're safe, that we have a very robust system. So ours is slightly heavier. We also, trying to get the, as you look at the newer trucks, higher sidewalls, we wanted more vertical adjustment. So obviously the higher you go, the higher the amount of forces are on the system. So we found we had to go to a cast steel construction in order to get the strength that we needed. Aluminum's great, but it does, you end up having to go to a bigger section, to minimize the amount of deflection that you're going to see in that system. So that's really what drove us to the steel versus aluminum. As far as other design considerations, our system, it doesn't use any set screws. Polaroid, Anderson, they drive set screws up into the bottom of the skid plate, the wear plate on the pin box, which adds a ton of stress to those points of contact, as well as you're actually putting a significant amount of vertical, negative pull on the kingpin itself. Pin boxes weren't really designed for that. They were designed to be supported by your fifth wheel hitch. The skid plate is supposed to support the hitch, not pull down on it in the opposite direction. So even before you put weight on your trailer and actually loaded your trailer, you already have a pretty significant amount of stress on the kingpin on your pin box of your fifth wheel. So we chose to go a different route. We don't use any set screws. We're really actually supporting the pin box as it's designed to be supported by the trailer manufacturer. Again, we just feel like it's a less stress on the system and all around better system, better method for coupling. That's a really big one for us, the shock dampening built into the hitch. And then the third thing, or fourth thing actually, is the torsional stability. So most of those convert to a goose ball, which doesn't have any torsional stability. So you can't use it with a turning point or a sidewinder or any type of trunnion style pin box. Not that you really need to with some of the offset that we have, but if you do already have a trailer with those systems, we wanted to be compatible with them. So our system will allow the use of our wedge to adapt to a turning point or a sidewinder if you happen to have a trunnion style pin box.
Mm-hmm. Cool. There's no doubt that for me, the fact that it's offset and that it gave me more clearance was a big deal, and I certainly emphasized that when I was talking about it.
You're okay. You're okay. You're still okay. You're still okay.
I'm hard over now. It's time to get close.
It's not going to touch. It will not touch. I can already see it won't. Yes, you actually can. You definitely can. Yeah, they won't touch.
So it's now cleared.
Yeah, it's clear of the cab. It will not touch. And you're clear of the bed? Yeah, I'm telling you, you're there, man. Yeah, watch this parking lot flex. It's close. Like right now, it's 4 to 6 inches. But yay. But there you go.
I think a lot of people saw that as a positive. However, I was surprised at some of the negative comments, which were that because it's not directly now over the axle, it would change perhaps the pin weight consideration or the way that the weight was distributed to the truck chassis. And I just wondered if you could speak to that.
So this is, I guess, a challenging one because short of going on a scale, it's hard for people to calculate it. It doesn't, if you've loaded your trailer correctly, so every trailer manufacturer recommends, you should have 10% tongue weight minimum. Most, gooseneck or fifth wheel trailers, you can go up to, but we recommend you don't go over 25% pin weight, right? The more pin weight you have on your trailer, obviously the better it tracks. Your center of mass is farther ahead of your trailer axles, and so it's going to track, better. It's not as susceptible to swaying. Your connection point on your truck has zero effect on that pin weight on your trailer. Your center of mass relative to the rear axle of the trailer, regardless of where you can put it on your bumper, and it doesn't change how your trailer tracks if your pin weight is distributed. What it does have an effect on is your gross axle weight rating. So your axle weight rating, the more weight you have on your rear axle versus your front axle, It obviously can reduce the amount of braking. Your front brakes tend to do most of your braking. Again, with a trailer, you should have trailer brakes that help stop. But again, the key is you should never exceed your rear axle gross weight rating. And the only real good way of knowing whether you've done that or not is to actually hook everything up and run it over a scale and see if you've exceeded that. If you're not exceeding your rear axle weight rating, you are probably safe to tow. Obviously, the farther you move the weight, the pin weight behind that axle, the more axle weight is there, because you're now distributing some of your front vehicle weight over your rear axle plus the weight on your trailer. But as long as you're not exceeding that, it's a safe setup. It's safe for you to tow. And if your pin weight is properly distributed, ahead of your trailer axle, again, it's going to track and it's going to be safe to tow. So I think that should answer your question. I think that's very misunderstood in the industry. People don't understand your axle weight ratings and how, where you put that weight on your trailer frame, how that affects it. So if you're already at the hairy edge of your maximum towing capacity for your truck, and then you put that weight behind the axle, yeah, it could result in a bad situation. But if you have a truck that's properly sized for the trailer that you're hauling, and you have, extra capacity, or you don't have a bunch of water in the tank on the trailer, you're within that trailer or your vehicle's axle weight rating, it's going to be a very safe, perfectly acceptable thing to do.
Now let's dig into the numbers on the truck and the trailer. So our 2019 Ram 2500 Bighorn Crew Cab with 4x4 and a 6'4" box. It has a max tow rating of 18,920 pounds, while maximum payload comes in at 2,110. The trailer that my dad bought is the Grand Design Solitude 310 GKR. Now, Grand Design says it has an unloaded vehicle weight of about 12,100 pounds, a gross vehicle weight rating, that's GVWR, of 15,000 pounds. That means it can weigh up to 15 grand when it is fully loaded. And this trailer has a hitch weight of about 2,300 pounds. So just on the hitch weight alone, yes, this Ram is over its payload rating, but you heard Joel from Curt. He mentioned to us that the gross axle weight ratings is what you should really pay attention to. Now, because we have the Crosswing and it shifts that weight a little bit behind the axle because you get the offset, well, that's going to add to our gross axle weight on the rear axles. So now we're out here in Dad's Ram 2500 with his new fifth wheel on the back because we wanted to understand more about how the truck is actually distributing the weight. It's one thing to say, oh, it's over the payload. We know that for a fact, but how much is each axle actually carrying? And to do that, we got one of these. We visited our local CAT certified scale, and the way the scale works is you put one axle onto an individual part of the scale, so it's actually able to spit out 3 different weights. So Dad, I'll just hit you with the weights and then you can react. So on the steer axle, that's your front axle.
Yep.
4,960 pounds.
Well under.
On your drive axle, 6,120 pounds.
Slightly over
And
the
then
axle rating.
On the trailer axle, 10,500 pounds for a gross weight of 21,580 pounds.
And that weight is easily within the limits of this truck. Certainly as far as towing is concerned.
So with those 3 weights, there's only one that throws a red flag, and that is your drive axle. Your rear axle is overloaded by 80 pounds. Once again, folks, if you want to know what your axle weight ratings are, they're on your door jam sticker. FCA US, or now Stellantis, they put a sticker on there. It shows you exactly what it is, and I know now for a fact that, yeah, Dad's rear axle is just overloaded. But this tells the bigger story, doesn't it, Dad? We know we're over payload by probably hundreds of pounds, and yet the axles are only just barely overloaded, and it's only the rear axle. I think that this tells the story that you do sometimes have to look past the payload number.
Well, and to that point, and we will make this point, is that the payload number is adjusted so that the total gross weight of the truck comes out at 10,000 pounds. And there's a very specific reason for that, because that keeps it at the high end of the Class 2B all right? Because when it slips into class 3, certain other things happen, and these are things that have nothing to do with how much weight it carries. It has everything to do with taxes, with safety, with emissions. That number triggers all kinds of things that, frankly, the manufacturer doesn't want to have to deal with. So they scale back the payload number so that the actual curb weight plus payload ends up at 10,000 pounds. That's not an accident, because when you add up your front axle and your rear axle, the number is actually over 12,000 pounds of capacity. So this is the reason we went up and had a look at the real numbers at the CAT scale.
And the other thing I think it backs up is let's be totally honest, Dad, when we both get in a truck, the first thing you're going to judge it by with the towing experience is how it drives. How much is it pulling on you? How much is it pushing you around? And I don't care if the numbers say it's great and it feels terrible, you're not going to drive it. Whereas this truck is the flip side. The numbers might tell you it's not great, but the drive is actually pretty dang good. So that was the first thing that had us both going, well, in the real world, this combination feels good. That means it should add up. So that's why, again, we dug past the payload number, and as long as you don't add anything else back there, tell Mom to not bring any more dishes or bed sheets. Your rear axle is going to be over by just that hair. But yeah, again, frankly, 80 pounds is negligible. You could take 80 pounds out of your trailer, no problem. You know what I mean?
However, there's another aspect to this, and like anytime you tow, you got to take a whole bunch of things into account. So one of them is that with my hitch, the fifth wheel hitch, traditional fifth wheel hitch that I had, if I kept it, I would not be able to turn very sharp. I would have had collision between trailer and cab if I went over a certain percentage of turn. So actually getting this new hitch from Curt gave me 8-inch offset to the rear. Now, that, frankly, is what's probably putting more weight on my rear axle.
Sure.
But that 8 inches helps me to clear the cab.
Yeah, the truck will actually do a full 90, which we were both a little surprised at. So there's your trade-off. You are offsetting the weight a little bit, adding a little more kind of hanging back on the rear axle, but you're getting a sharp turn out of it. So yeah, that's working out pretty well too.
Yeah, you know what? And there's sliding hitches out there for short beds. Mine is not a short bed, but regardless, certain trailers, the noses are they protrude too far. So, and that's the case with this one. So, and I just did not want a sliding hitch. I've had one before and I hated it. Just hated the way that it worked.
Well, folks, we have come to the end of this one. Now, I hope we've told this story as clearly as we can. Yes, we are overloading the truck in some ways and not in other ways, because we truly believe that payload is not just a number produced by engineering. There are many other factors that go into it, so you do have to peel back that onion a little bit to truly understand what your truck is capable of. Although I do think it's always best practice not to overload your pickup truck if you can help it, of course. Like I said though, folks, that's it for this one. Now please go below into the comments. Let us know what you think about everything you just saw. As always, while you're down there, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit join to become a member, and then come right back here to Truck King to see what we're testing next. See ya.